Picture this. You're sitting in a dealership. The salesperson slides a paper across the desk with a big smile and says, "It's only $620 a month." And something in your brain goes, "Yeah, okay, I can do $620 a month." So you sign. You drive off the lot feeling pretty good. Maybe you even roll the windows down. What you don't realize, what nobody in that building will ever tell you, is that you just made one of the most expensive financial decisions of your entire life. And I'm not talking about the car. I'm talking about what that car is quietly costing you every single month for the rest of your working years. My name is Bob, and I spend way too much time doing math that car salespeople pray you never do. If you want to understand the real mechanics behind wealth building, not the motivational poster version, but the actual numbers, make sure to subscribe and hit the thumbs up if this one changes how you look at your driveway. Now, before we get into the number that's going to bother you for the rest of the week, let me ask you something. When you think about why you're not building wealth as fast as you should be, what comes to mind? Maybe you blame your salary. Maybe you think you just need to earn more. Or maybe you've convinced yourself that you're pretty good with money, except for a few small things. Here's what nobody tells you. For most Americans, the single biggest leak in their financial life is sitting in their garage, depreciating by the minute. And the crazy part? They're proud of it.
Let's start with the number the dealership hopes you never calculate. The average American spends somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 per year on their vehicle. That's not a typo. Add up the monthly payment, insurance, gas, maintenance, registration, and the sneaky one, depreciation, and you're looking at roughly $1,000 to $1,250 every single month walking out the door. For a lot of households, that's more than they spend on groceries, more than they invest for retirement, more than almost any other single line item in their budget. And yet, most people have no idea that number is real because they only ever look at the monthly payment. That's exactly how the dealership wants it. Here's the trick they use. It's called payment anchoring. Instead of talking about the total price of the car, they talk about the monthly payment. Can you do $620 a month? Sounds a lot better than, can you spend $44,000 on a depreciating asset? But it's the same thing. They've just chopped the scary number into small enough pieces that your brain stops feeling the pain. It's the financial equivalent of eating an entire cake one bite at a time and being surprised you gained weight. And because most people finance cars over 60, 72, or even 84 months now, yes, 7-year car loans are real and growing, that payment becomes a permanent fixture in your life. You pay off one car and immediately roll into the next. The payment never ends, the wealth never starts.
Now, here's where the math starts getting genuinely uncomfortable. Let's say you're 28 years old and you commit to always having a car payment. $620 a month, roughly average for a new vehicle in 2026. Over a 40-year working life, that's $297,600 in payments alone. But that's not what it actually costs you. Because that $620 a month, if invested instead in a basic index fund returning 8% annually, would grow to just under $2.1 million by the time you retire. $2.1 million. Not because you got lucky, not because you picked the right stock, just because you redirected one monthly payment into something that compounds instead of rusts. That's the number that should be on the window sticker, not the MSRP, not the monthly payment. $2,100,000. That's what your car habit actually costs you over a lifetime.
But wait, I know what you're thinking. Bob, I need a car. I can't just not have transportation. And you're right. Nobody is telling you to walk to work in the rain. This isn't about going car-free. It's about understanding the spectrum between I need transportation and I need this specific $45,000 vehicle with heated seats and a panoramic sunroof. Because those are two very different financial decisions dressed up as the same one. Let me show you exactly how different. Take two people. Call them Marcus and Devin. Same job, same income, $72,000 a year. Marcus buys new every 5 years. He's always got a nice current model. usually around $40,000 to $45,000, financed over 60 months. Devin buys a 3-year-old used car with cash, something reliable, maybe $14,000 to $16,000. He drives it for 8 years and maintains it properly. At 65, Marcus has had a great-looking driveway his whole life. Devin has quietly invested the difference. We're talking about a gap of over $800,000 in net worth at retirement. Not because Devin made more money, not because Devin was smarter about the stock market, just because Devin stopped treating his car as a financial statement and started treating it as a tool. That $800,000 gap is the real price of always driving something new. And here's the part that should make you put your phone down for a second. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses roughly 15 to 20% of its value. Not over years, in minutes. You hand over $45,000, you drive 2 blocks, and you're already sitting in a $37,000 car. By year 3, that same vehicle is worth maybe $27,000. You've lost $18,000 in value while simultaneously paying interest on the original loan. It's like paying someone to watch your money burn. Slowly, with a new car smell. Depreciation is the expense nobody budgets for because it doesn't show up as a bill, but it is absolutely mathematically destroying your net worth in slow motion every single day the car sits in your driveway.
Here's something else the car industry understands about you that most financial advisors won't say out loud. Cars are emotional purchases, deeply emotional. You don't buy a car because of the horsepower specs. You buy it because of how it makes you feel. Successful, reliable, attractive, safe. The marketing budgets behind major car brands are in the billions, precisely because they've cracked the code on making you feel something when you look at their vehicle. That feeling is worth $40,000 to them. And here's the brutal irony. Research consistently shows that once you've owned a car for about 3 months, the emotional boost completely fades. The hedonic adaptation kicks in. It just becomes your car. The thing you park, stress about door dings on, and occasionally find old French fries under the seat. The feeling that cost you $40,000 lasts about 90 days. The payment lasts 72 months. Now let's talk about the hidden costs that don't show up in the monthly payment, because the payment is just the beginning. First, insurance. A new car, especially one financed, requires full coverage. For the average American, that's running $2,000 to $3,000 per year right now, and those rates have spiked significantly in the last 2 years. On a used car owned outright, you have options. You can carry liability only. You can choose your deductibles. You have control. Second, registration and taxes. In most states, these are calculated as a percentage of the vehicle's value. Newer, more expensive car equals higher annual tax bill. Third, maintenance. Newer vehicles often require manufacturer-specific service, specialty parts, and dealer visits that cost significantly more than what an independent mechanic charges on a simpler, older vehicle. Fourth, and this is the sneaky one, financing interest. On a $40,000 car at 7% interest over 60 months, you pay roughly $7,400 in interest alone. That's money that goes directly to the bank, buys you nothing, builds nothing, and disappears completely. Add it all up: payment, insurance, gas, registration, interest, maintenance, and that $620 a month payment becomes closer to $1,100 or $1,200 in real monthly cost. That's the number that never appears in the ad. Here's a mindset shift that changes everything once you see it. Stop asking, can I afford the monthly payment? And start asking, what is this actually costing me in opportunity? That reframe is worth more than any financial course you could ever buy. A $40,000 car isn't $40,000. It's $40,000 that could have become $185,000 in 20 years at 8% growth. It's $40,000 that could have been a down payment on a rental property. It's $40,000 that could have covered 2 years of living expenses if you lost your job tomorrow.
When you run every major purchase through the lens of opportunity cost, your decisions change dramatically. Not because you become a miserable miser who never enjoys anything, but because you start making intentional choices instead of emotional ones.
Let me show you what the math looks like when someone actually applies this. Take someone earning $65,000 a year. They're currently driving a financed car with a $550 monthly payment. They sell it, pay off the difference, buy a $12,000 used car with cash. Their monthly transportation costs drop by roughly $400 after accounting for the change in insurance. They invest that $400 every month into a simple index fund. In 30 years, at 8% returns, that single decision, one trip to a used car lot, is worth $600,000. Not millions, sure, but $600,000 in retirement wealth generated by a car swap? That's not a small thing. That's the difference between retiring comfortably and working until you physically can't anymore.
And here's where most people make the critical mistake. They get all fired up about this math, they sell the fancy car, they feel great, and then 18 months later, they're back at the dealership because their brother-in-law got a new truck and something inside them says they deserve one too. The comparison trap is relentless. It doesn't care about your retirement timeline. Social pressure around vehicles in America is real, and it is expensive. The average person will never tell you their salary. They will absolutely show you their car. That car is doing a job that has nothing to do with transportation. It's a status signal. And every time you upgrade, someone else upgrades to stay ahead of you. And the whole thing becomes an arms race that nobody actually wins except the dealerships and the banks. The person who opts out of that race quietly and permanently is the person who ends up free.
So, what does actually smart car ownership look like in 2026? Here's the framework, and it's simpler than most people expect. Buy used, 3 to 5 years old. Let someone else take the depreciation hit. The car is functionally identical to a new one and costs 30 to 40% less. Buy with cash if at all possible. If you can't swing that yet, finance as little as possible and pay it off early. Carry the vehicle for as long as it's economically sensible. A well-maintained Toyota or Honda can reliably run to 200,000 miles. There's no shame in driving a 10-year-old Camry. There's actually a quiet pride in knowing exactly what it represents. Every year you drive that paid-off car, you're banking the difference. And cap your total vehicle value at no more than 10 to 15% of your annual gross income. If you make $70,000, your car should be worth $7,000 to $10,500. That's the guideline that keeps transportation in its proper place, as a tool, not a financial anchor.
Look, nobody's saying your car doesn't matter at all. Safety matters, reliability matters, getting to work matters. But there's a spectrum between a car that gets you reliably from A to B and a car that signals to strangers on the highway that you're doing well. One of those is a transportation decision. The other is an identity decision, dressed up as a transportation decision. And that identity decision, repeated every 5 years for your entire working life, is the single most consistent reason ordinary income earners never actually build wealth. The math is unforgiving. The car industry is very good at making sure you never do it. So do it anyway. Because the person driving the 7-year-old Honda with no payment and a growing investment account is not the person who's struggling. They're the person who figured it out early and decided that real wealth is better than looking wealthy. Those two things are not the same, and the gap between them is usually parked in the driveway. Start with one decision this week. Look up what your current car is worth. Look up what you owe. Run the real numbers. And ask yourself honestly whether the vehicle you're driving is moving you toward the life you want or quietly making sure you never get there. Your future self already knows the answer.